Hello everybody, this is Manu-S and welcome back to the Eternal set review for Defiance. Today it's time to talk about the second part of the shadow cards. Also welcome to 2019, a new year and more content. So hope we're gonna grow more this year, and yeah, I can hopefully do this full-time long-term and just dedicate myself to making content for you guys and for all the games we are passionate about and enjoy playing and competing in. So yeah, to a good start for 2019. And one thing before we move on to the shadow cards, please, if you enjoy the content, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification icon to not miss out on future content. You can also find all the social media info down in the description. And please consider whitelisting eternaltitans.com and YouTube to help support the free content. Thanks everyone, and now on to the shadow cards. Alright, so first we have Mournful Deathcap. This will warm the heart of all the mill lovers, but let's be real, we have a 75 card deck. Milling is not a particularly promising strategy. But yeah, it's a 2-cost 0/4, so it's a pretty good blocker, and on Empower, the enemy player discards the top 3 cards of the deck. So it only works on the enemy, so it's dedicated mill basically. You can't even use it on yourself for setting up some reanimation or stuff. It's really just meant to mill your opponent. So yeah, your calls have been answered. I still don't think it's particularly viable. Also, double shadow is kind of restrictive, but yeah, maybe at some point people can at least put together a half-decent fun mill deck. But for now, not sure this is quite there yet. In Limited, yeah, kind of the same. Milling technically is easier, but it's also harder to get enough cards that do that. And then also double shadow on turn 2 in Limited without much fixing is also rougher. So yeah, not too impressed by this card. Next we have Oblivio Bot. That card is kind of cool and has a very awesome and cute artwork with this grenadine bot with like the dynamite as a cigarette behind his ear, basically. And yeah, it's a 2-cost 5/1 that on Empower, yeah, kills itself. So it's basically meant to play and then kind of stop you from playing power until it either traded or you don't need it anymore and need the power more. Problem is, it is a 1 health unit, so it's so fragile that the fact that it has 5 attack is kind of negligible. You basically need to give this, I don't know, overwhelm with a combat trick when the opponent is blocking, or give it evasion to even be worthwhile. And it just, yeah, I don't see this doing anything other than looking really cute. In Limited, it's kind of the same. A bit better maybe in Limited because you can use it for blocking and just kind of play it later, and a 5 attack blocker can trade up nicely, but 1 health is still very fragile and punished easily, so I doubt it's even going to be very good in Limited. Then we have Scavenge, more rats that can't block. In this case you get 2, so a worse Grenadine Drone or sort of a bad dragon fodder for anyone that's playing Magic, but on top you get to fix your fire or justice influence. Although I can't really think of a deck in these colors that would want this card. I don't know, maybe there's kind of a Stone Scar token style deck now with some relics and the Red Cage and Scavenge and stuff, but yeah, I wouldn't count on it. Although to be fair, these cards kinda play well with Callus. The problem is they can't block, so playing a Callus onto a board with like red cages gives you reds, but they can't block. I think the reds might happen after the Callus sacks your board, but I'm not sure. I would have to try that. Maybe there's like kind of a cool deck there, but I doubt there is a really good deck there, but we'll have to see. And in Limited, yeah, if your deck is very aggressive and can take advantage of small bodies like this, go right ahead. Otherwise, this seems pretty bad. Not being able to block is a major deal in Limited, even more so than in Constructed, where you can build your deck in a way that you don't care about blocking. Then we have Tavia, Lesrai, Raid Leader, another elf tribal card. It's a 2-cost 2/2. On Empower, your elves get +1 attack this turn, making this card pretty underwhelming because worst case it's a 2/2, best case it's like a 3/2 that also buffs some of your other units, and then once per turn you may pay 5 and discard a card, basically turn like a spare power into 2 2/1 Dark Elves, which is just 2 power 2/1s, and at least you play them, so you kind of get a decent rate on your power investment, basically 1 to sort of cycle the power, and then 2 per Dark Elf, which is not great, but get a bit of card advantage and stuff. But all in all, I think the support for elves is just not good enough to make this card particularly playable, unfortunately. So yeah, not too impressive. In limited, however, this seems pretty good. Like a 2-cost 2/2 with upside is already pretty solid deal in limited, and then the activated ability can come in really handy in longer games. Next we have Warlock's Brew. For 2 power, fast, you give an enemy unit and each other unit with the same name -2/-2. This turn, anyone coming from Magic, this is basically exactly echoing DK, which is about as good in this game as it is in Magic, I would say, or even a bit worse because the units are a bit bigger, so there's less things that you can kill. There's mostly 1-drops and a major part of 2-drops, but not even all 2-drops, and past that it's getting really dim. It's a decent answer to tokens, but there are cards like Devastating Setback that do that better, especially if they have multiple kinds of small units. But this has the upside of being fast, so it's kind of a trick, and it also doesn't affect your board. But yeah, all in all, I don't see a deck right now that would want this, and it's a bit too weak and situational probably to get there. In limited, however, this seems like a pretty solid card, somewhere between trick and decent removal for cheap stuff, and kills a bunch of the smaller flyers, which is always important. Then we have Flickerling, kind of a chubby wisp. This card looks a bit weird, kinda naked and pretty big head. And yeah, it's a 3-cost 2/2 flyer for Wisp and Radiant synergies in limited. Obviously not a constructed card, but in limited this seems like a very solid 3-drop. Next we have Mug. The enemy player discards a non-power card of your choice from their hand, so this is another magic card, Coercion. And I would say it's about as good as Coercion in this game, as Coercion and Magic in this game, so not very good. 3-cost discard is very, very inefficient because you're spending your entire third turn on something that doesn't affect the board, while your opponent probably will do something that affects the board. And yeah, this is the only way to discard sides, so that's like the unique thing about it, but I don't think that's relevant enough, probably. And yeah, it's just very expensive and clunky, and the 2-cost discard that discards units is already lackluster and very situational. This would be a potential sideboard card if sideboards were a thing. I think as a market card it's not very good. Too clunky, too slow, takes too long to set up. So yeah, don't see this card having much of a future. In limited it's kind of the same. I don't think it's great. Probably fine as a filler, but nothing to be happy about having in your deck, I think. Next we have Rista, Akanta's Herald. This is a pretty great card actually. It's a 3-cost 2/3 that can't block. On summon you draw a Shadow Sigil from your deck, so that's already card advantage and is amazing. Then on Empower she gets +2 attack and Warcry this turn. So effectively she's a 4/3 Warcry that can't block on offense. And on defense she is not existent, so it's a pretty aggressive card. But yeah, it gives you nice fodder for merchants, fodder for Empower. Does some cool stuff. The card is definitely really powerful and the kind of thing you want to be doing in Eternal, playing good, proactive cards that also give you value, and Rista ticks all those boxes. And if she wouldn't have can't block, she would be insane. With the can't block, she's like kind of moderated and kept in check to only go into like more specific proactive decks. But yeah, all in all, pretty powerful card, and I think in the long run we will see this card somewhere. Right now I don't think there is a particularly competitive deck that wants her. Ilya has been messing around with like a Argenport mid-range and power themed deck where he runs her, but she's kind of a bit awkward in that kind of deck because she can't block. So the more aggressive you are, the better she gets. And yeah, so far seems tricky to find a home for her, but maybe there's like an Argenport and power themed aggro deck in the future. I tried brewing one with the cards we have now and didn't quite feel right, but we will see. And in limited, of course, she's also a really good pick, especially if your deck is more proactive. Then we have Dumping Ground. This card's kind of interesting. On summon, you may sacrifice a unit to give enemy units -2/-1 permanently. So this is kind of a sweeper type thing, and also has finishing potential. You can pay 10 and sacrifice Dumping Ground to play 2 units from your void and give them charge, sacrifice them at the end of turn. So it's kind of like a non-flying double Haunting Scream type effect for the late game, which seems really good against reactive control decks. And out front, you get this sort of like a sweeper permanent crippling type effect. It's kind of an interesting and cool card. I'm just not sure what to do with it, and I'm afraid there might not be anything really to do with it and that would want it right now, but it's definitely a card to like kind of keep in the back of your head because it definitely does interesting things and is not bad or irrelevant per se. And in limited, kind of the same. This effect, this one-sided crippling effect, seems pretty strong, and you often have like a random unit to throw away, especially in stall situations. And you're also reasonably likely to get to like 10 power in limited games if the game stall out a bit. So yeah, seems like a solid card in limited at least, and potentially really powerful. Next we have Fangs in the Dark. Your attacking units get deadly this turn. A fast spell, so kind of a trick. Clearly not a constructed card. And even in limited, I'm not too excited about this. You need multiple units to be affected by this, turning combat into trades where otherwise you would just not trade and lose your unit, or the units would bounce off of each other and now your unit is killing theirs, and or have enough quick draw units to kind of get an advantage out of this. This is just, yeah, very, very situational. And since since it only works on attackers, your opponent can play around it more. If it also would work on defense, it would be much better. Then your opponent goes for like the Alpha Strike, thinking they have a dominant board, and then you just play this and trade your worst guys against their best guys, making this card pretty decent and limited. But the way it is, I don't see this card being worth it. Next we have Governor Sahin. It's a 4-cost 3/3. Once per turn you may pay 3 and sacrifice a relic to play the top relic of your deck. Basically, with this you want either a relic in the market to get from the market and activate this, or like ways to have relics in your deck that aren't actually relics, like for example that moth that gives you an ancient bubble, and then you can use this to cheat a big relic into play, like a Pit of Lenectar. The thing is, if you play this, it's likely going to die or be silenced before you can use it, so you have to play it on 7 power to play and activate it right away, and then all you really get is a Pit of Lenectar for 7 power, and you get this measly 3/3 for 4, and that seems kind of like a worse deal than just playing the trick, like the Polisher that just turns Pit of Lenectar into a 7-cost relic in your hand. So yeah, not very impressed by this. It looks kind of cool and does kind of cool stuff, but in the end, if you look at the real cost and the fact that it's basically a 7-cost card, it is pretty unimpressive, because then you can only get so much advantage out of activating it the first time, and you can't really expect it to do more than that in a realistic game. So yeah, pretty underwhelming card in the end, unfortunately. And in limited, yeah, I mean, it's fine. A 4-cost 3/3 is not bad. The upside can be strong if your deck has a couple of payoffs. Go right ahead. It's not gonna make or break your deck, I think. And last but not least, for part 2, we have Lesrai Intimidator, another elf. 4 power, double shadow, it's a 2/3, pretty small, has pledge attached, and on Empower your units get +1 attack this turn. So basically a worse, what's her name, Tavia, that affects all your units, and yeah, pretty much clearly a draft card, not a constructed card. And in limited, however, this this seems like a pretty solid card. If your deck is aggressive, this should be fine, but it's still not great, I think, since it effectively is like a 3/3 for 4 that gives your units +1/+1, which is fine, but not that great. And how much power do you realistically still have on turn 5 onwards, especially if you're more aggressive? You don't want to have a lot of power. So yeah, higher cost and power units, especially more aggressive higher cost and power units, usually have that issue and suffer tremendously in their playability from that. Okay, that concludes part 2 of the shadow cards. Hope you guys enjoyed it as usual. Let me know in the comments what you think about the cards and my review, and if there are situations where you might disagree and why. And yeah, looking forward to hear from all of you guys. Hit the like button if you enjoyed the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Also, don't forget to turn on the notifications to be notified when there's new content, and I'm uploading a lot lately, so make sure to not miss it. You can also find me on Twitter, Facebook, and Twitch, live streaming and posting the latest updates. You can also find this as hyperlink in the description together with playlist link and all sorts of other information, so make sure to check that out. And one last request again, if you haven't already, please consider whitelisting our team website, eternaltitans.com, and YouTube to support my YouTube channel with free ads. That would really mean a lot and helps the channel grow. Thanks everyone. I'm your host Manu S. I'll see you next time.